One of the biggest challenges of IPPIS is that it poses great threat to our national security. The system is not strategic for a sovereign nation in a world system where almost all countries are vulnerable to sabotage by international cyber criminals and other states. Once such sabotage happens, the entire country will be plunged into confusion and dysfunction. This has happened before and can happen again. It will constitute an impediment in the way of the ability of universities to provide staff for new programs, as well as replace staff. This is because new staff members cannot be paid salaries until they are enrolled into the IPPIS database, which will take months to actualize. The IPPIS system only recognizes staff members that are on permanent and pensionable appointments. Universities are universal, as I said earlier, in outlook in terms of recruitment of staff and student intake. Non-Nigerian staff are normally employed on contract. Given the IPPIS, universities will face the problem of paying salaries and allowances of such staff members that are on contract appointments, expatriates, emeritus professors, and so on. The IPPIS restricts the ability of universities to employ much needed staff at short notice. Such staff, when recruited, may not be paid until cleared by the Office of the Accountant General. And you can imagine lecturers converging as at today. I think we have about 48 federal universities converging in Abuja to sort out issues about their salaries. That will also trigger, a round of corruptive practices. The IPPIS, the dynamism associated with staff recruitment will become cumbersome with the introduction of IPPIS. Lecturers in colleges or faculties of medicine serving as honorary consultants in teaching hospitals and consultants serving as honorary lecturers will face problems collecting their proper remunerations, as it is currently the case with some of our colleagues in basic medical sciences. The IPPIS is designed in such a way that outsourced services such as cleaning and security, casual workers, NYSC members cannot be captured. The IPPIS platform does not allow for deductions from staff salaries arising from legally sanctioned union and cooperative society activities. This will directly infringe on the constitutionality or constitutionally guaranteed fundamental right of staff to association. Payroll adjustments, such as updates and variations to payroll, will become centralized in Abuja. It will therefore require any university staff with such problems to travel to Abuja at his or her expense to get it resolved. Even if the federal government can muster the capacity to properly manage the payrolls for over 80 federal universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, with a staff strength of over 100,000 people, employing hundreds of additional payroll officers to do what is already being done in the institutions will be at a huge cost. At the current ratio of one payroll officer to 200 employees, it means that about 500 million naira will be added to the government's annual wage bill to duplicate an administrative function that has not been found to be deficient in output or lacking in credibility. If FG's unspoken reasons for IPPIS include the lack of accountability on the part of the universities, polytechnics, and colleges, then the solution is auditing, not duplication. Technically speaking, this one is very important because they have made corruption the major issue. IPPIS is a scam. It creates more problems than it resolves. To buttress this, the AGM claims that the goal of IPPIS is to engender transparency, accountability, and probity in government expenditure. However, to combat corruption in either financial management or personnel and payroll management, the preferred strategy is to decentralize and not centralize. This is because, technically speaking, corruption is spelled as, I will give a formula. C is equal to M plus D minus T. How do I mean? C stands for corruption. M stands for monopoly. D stands for discretion. And T stands for transparency. So in other words, we are saying to achieve a corrupt-free system, we need to decentralize and not to centralize. And centralization leads to monopoly and discretion. This will lead to more corruption, not less. If every lecturer will have to come to Abuja to solve their problem, a point will come that they will need to grease somebody's pants to address their issues, either of underpayment or with third salary and so on and so forth. Even promotion areas in the teaching hospitals, they are already having problems. Governing councils oversight and visitation panel mechanism are based on a bottom-up approach, and that is what we are advocating. While IPPIS is based on top-down approach, a far less effective strategy. IPPIS is the first automated government payroll in the history of computerized government payrolls since 1950s that requires a significant percentage of employees to fill a form to complain of basic payroll malfunctions, such as unpaid salary, short payment, and so on. For payrolls, the best practices significant level is 1%. IPPIS has levels of up to 30% in some agencies of government where it is already in operation. Significantly, it is inconceivable that an automated system cannot double-check itself to know if transaction record has been generated from a static list of employees. The implication is that exception module that will be used to rectify such errors will allow a system user to bypass automated red objective process and manually issue directives, less subjective instructions to the system. In other words, technically speaking, IPPIS has its own inbuilt problems. The scenario above is not only primitive, but also creates a door for fraud. Little wonder that the Accountant General has always put out conflicting figures about the number of personnel in the IPPIS. The 2015 report of the Auditor General for the Federation clearly indicted the Office of the Accountant General and noted as follows, I quote, "Of particular concern was the inability of the OAGF to provide records covering about 2.98 billion in the integrated payroll and personnel information, IPPIS, operation transaction accounts. The National Assembly and the EFCC should immediately investigate the monumental fraud embedded in IPPIS. IPPIS has inbuilt mechanism for escalating corruption when payroll is centralized. For example, a recent report on an Abuja-based FM radio station, Berekete Family, on Friday, 23rd August 2019, gave a vivid account of how some individuals used the IPPIS platform to perpetrate fraud running into millions of naira. The case was actually reported by an individual who was being threatened for busting the ring of individuals involved. Several other cases have been linked with agencies already captured under the IPPIS. Hence, the most advertised advantage of curbing corruption through IPPIS may not hold water. The way IPPIS is configured and being operated will give room for the inflation of salary accounts. Our proposals and conclusion. Your Excellency, distinguished senators, our proposals include the following. 1. The federal government has made it impossible for the universities to function at their optimal level for failure to fund them adequately. In the last 10 years or so, hardly were annual budgets of universities, especially the capital components, implemented up to 50%. The government must return to releasing funds on at least quarterly basis, if not annually, to support the smooth running of institutions. University autonomy means that the council of each university, not the office of the Accountant General, has the power to manage the finance and personnel of the universities. Number two, if government wants to curb corrupt practices through the payroll and personnel management, the best pathway is to make the governing councils work. The exercise of the power of the visitor in respect of visitation exercise, as stated in the law, which ASUU has continued to advocate, should be activated. 3, Nigerian universities have capacity to develop their own platform in place of IPPIS with different levels of control, which can be accessed periodically to assess compliance with the regulations on transparency and accountability by each university. We have seen this practicalized in other universities in Africa, including University of Ghana, Legon. Let me say this. IPPIS is being used in Ghana, but universities are exempted. This can be confirmed. And it is because they recognize that universities are universal cities. People come from all over the world to work in the universities. And that is what gives a university its universality. Except we want to return our university to localization. Already we are inching towards making some feasibility in the ranking of global universities. We shall reverse our gains when we make it impossible for us to attract people from other parts of the world to work with us on short term, as obtained in other places. ASUU can coordinate the project if the government gives the approval for the development of a separate and unique salary payment system for the universities. We've already seen our members who are experts in IT, and they are already being assembled. We just want clearance for us to come up with a model that we can test for them, and they can have level of control. What they want to check, they will still check, but not to move people from Port Harcourt, from Sokoto, from Maiduguri, from Lagos to Abuja because they want to address their payroll problem. In conclusion, sir, ASUU strongly believes the introduction of IPPIS in federal universities, which is not backed by law, will only compound the problem of regular flow of fund and personnel management rather than resolve it. The union's position is that there are extant legal provisions and negotiated agreements arising from the nature and peculiarities of Nigerian universities, which make IPPIS unnecessary and inapplicable to the Nigerian universities. I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.